It's still
Here we go.
twisting. Good morning. Banks won't give you a loan. There's a couple of tricks and tips we can teach you. Stay tuned, and we're going to have a chat about it right now.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak, episode 409. Banks won't give you a loan. Well, good morning, Mark. How are you? Let's get into it.
Excellent.
Money.
And what a beautiful morning. What a beautiful morning it is. These last two mornings compared to these floods and storms and the stuff we've been having. Thank God the rain's gone.
Yeah, a lot of places were hit hard. A lot of it's tough, but it's good to see a lot of companies putting out support. I know what did I see? I forget what I was read, but there was so many of help, accommodation, just a lot of stuff companies were doing, private companies were doing to help. So that's really good to see. Good morning, Bill. Greek Independence
Day. Good country. Oh, happy Greek. There should be a Serbian and Italian one as well. Happy Greek Independence Day.
Perfect.
To the Greek community out there.
Let's get into it. This morning we're going to talk about potentially with such high capital growth, the entry point to get into a home has really grown. So upgrading, if you're in a one, before it was going for 1.3 as an entry, now to 1.7, 2 million. And if you want a complete product, you're now up to like 2.5, low to mid 2. So the one thing a lot of people don't talk about, Mark, is the income required to buy this has skyrocketed.
And it didn't used to be like that, because if you had the equity 10, 20, 30 years ago, it didn't matter. But this whole Royal Commission and responsible lending has put a lot of pressure on people's incomes. Even if they were given inheritance of $1 million, the bank still doesn't care if they want to buy something for $2 million. They want to see a strong income. So it's really affecting people, and it's, it's not something we discuss, Michael, because it's embarrassing, because if you don't get given the loan by the first bank, the second bank, the third bank, or the broker doesn't get the loan for you, you sort of don't go to a barbecue and tell all your mates that you were a loser.
It's so true. It's one of the things where when you're at a barbecue, you'll blame the market. You'll blame something else, but you won't say, oh, my income wasn't high enough. I had a year ago, I had a deposit, they would have lent it to me. But now with the entry point, I still can buy it with my deposit, but they won't loan me enough because I don't earn enough. Like, it's not a conversation people will say. They're more than happy to blame the market. Just say the bank won't give them the money for whatever reason. Yes, you're right, Bill. They have done legislation to pass relaxing lending laws, which will still help with serviceability, but they're still pretty strict, and then they didn't pull back everything. But there was a gap where they used to have to make sure you can service 7% interest rates or 5%, even though if they're lending at
5 now.
But there's still like an unspoken rule that it's times 6 your income. So if you own 50 grand, they'll only lend you 300 grand. It's pretty hard to get around that regardless with that servicing, especially if put it this way, Mark, like if you're looking to buy an apartment for 700 grand and you had 70K, well, you now need to almost have a third partner to get that bump if they're only going to lend you times 6. So there's some big gaps.
You need to marry 2 women that are earning money. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be a strategy. So
and that's our show done.
Marry 2 women.
Marry 2 women and get an extra income into the house, and that'll get you a mortgage. No, that's it.
Yeah. But we've got a good strategy, especially if you have a house, Mark, that could bump up your income or could actually just replace buying a property altogether. Tell us.
Yeah, so look, people severely underestimate the value of an extension on their home. Often the pressure to get out of the house is you need a bigger house, and you sort of don't think that you should get yourself in debt in order to get yourself out of debt. But it can often work that way, where if you build on accommodation onto your home that you can generate an income from, you're borrowing money in order to generate an income for life, but that income for life is going to keep kicking over for 20, 30, 40 years. And the perception of the bank on that income is excellent. So much so they'll actually regard that as your income, as a permanent income for you. So a lot of people get freaked out when I say to them, if you build a 150 grand granny flat right there, we're going to rent that for you in our Northern Beaches area for $650 a week, $700 a week. That $700 a week is going to service a mortgage of $1.2 million. And they go, what? And I go, actually, you're right, probably $1.3 million. And they go, if I build something for 150 grand, I can then that'll service my mortgage of 1.3 million. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, and this works well because, Mark, as you said before, a lot of people have inherited, like especially their parents who still have their homes who have passed and then they sell. Like they're getting chunks of $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, but their income maybe a modest $60,000 a year. So they've got the ability to spend 100 grand or 150 on a granny flat and takes their 60 grand income to 90,000. And incomes, it's a lot, Mark, it's a lot easier to build a granny flat for 150 grand than get a boss or a second job to get your boss to do a pay rise of potentially 40, 50% of your income, or take out a second job to get that $30,000 extra. I think income's going to be key in everything, reducing your expenses, at least on paper. Like we've had shows before, Mark. Don't stop using your savings account for sports bet, Uber Eats. Try and do a lot more in cash. Try and do something to bring down your expenses, because as much as they have relaxing laws for serviceability, they've actually bumped up your expenses. Before they had a minimum, they could get away with, say, doing a minimum, let's say $100 a month for a person. But now that minimum has gone up to $500 a month. I don't know the exact figures, but the premise is what's happened. So it's almost like they've given it over here, but they've made it harder over here. So you take the extra income where you can. And Mark, you may not, let's say you've got that home, you wanted to upgrade, but instead of buying another home, you build the granny flat, you move out of that property and you go rent somewhere. Let's face it, you could probably rent the $2.5 million home for $1,000 a week or $1,200 a week, which is probably the income you'll generate from your new granny flat and your existing dwelling. So instead of going through the selling, building, taking on a larger debt, we had this on another show previously where you rent out where you own and you go rent. Yep, welcome back. You go rent where you want to live. Mark, I was just saying that instead of, you could rent out the granny flat you've just built and your existing home, and then you could rent the $2.5 million home. Mark,
yep. And you still got this huge asset growing, and you still got this wonderful income, and you still got this huge asset going. Now, another thing that I quite liked as a bit of a hack is that you don't necessarily, when presenting yourself to the bank, you want to present yourself in the best light. You have also got the opportunity, some people also have the opportunity of mum and dad being there, that they can live with mum or dad. So sometimes mum or dad have these enormous homes, and then you can basically say, look, we're going to live with mum and dad and rent out our home in order for yourself to get a loan. It's we're not saying don't be honest to the bank and tell them you're going to do one thing and do another, but we're genuinely saying that, if you have got the ability to get rid of to generate an income by renting your home and not having to pay rent when you're living with parents, if your home rents for $1,000 a week, because houses are getting really good rent at the moment. So if your house is getting $1,200 a week, $1,000 a week, you've straight away just bolted onto your income 50, 60, 70, 80 grand worth of income on top of your income. And if your wife on top of her income, that's three massive incomes that contribute, that can ask for a mortgage and most probably get it, because you may just be missing out on that 70k income and now you've got it.
Yeah. So Mark, so instead of getting the second wife, you could just move back in with the parents. It may be a better choice to get that income better.
It's probably more sustainable, I think, in this country.
It's true. But that's a really good strategy people could look at. There's no problem, like, even if you do go back home for 6 to 12 months to get you in that home, you probably only need to do things for 3 to 6 months to really clean up the banking records and lower those expenses. So I think that's a great tip. Anything else you want to add on to this? Morning, Emma.
What I find is weird is the banks don't, after the banks give you a loan, you never get a call back. As long as you're paying that mortgage, they never say, oh, you know, are you still living with your parents? Or, oh, how much rent are you getting now? Some people don't even know that there's no check-in process after the loan is granted. So after they've given you the loan and you've drawn down the loan, they never really check in with you 1, 2, 5, 10 years later, as long as that's being paid, that mortgage. You know, so if you are, for instance, living with mum or dad while you're getting the loan, and you do live in the house at a late, go back into the house or whatever, that loan that's been given doesn't really get checked up upon, which is quite unusual.
Yeah, it's very true, isn't it? So it's just sort of get the loan, make sure you can pay it as well. What else?
Have a great day.
Have a great day. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll be back tomorrow morning as well. And then I think on Saturday or Monday, we'll have Elisa on to talk about off-market, pre-market. And then on Tuesday, I've got the author of Commercial Property Investing coming on. So that will be a good couple shows coming up. Stay tuned. Thank you.
See you, everyone.